romance readers, welcome to Illicit Liaisons with tender and tempting tales, where each week we discuss the good, the bad, and the naughty of romance fiction. I am Jenna Hart, a romance author of the Southern Heat contemporary romance series and the Sexy Valentine mysteries, as well as the managing editor of Tender and Tempting Tales, a steamy romance anthology for readers who like quickies.
Hi, I'm Tara Leederman, social media manager here at Tender and Tempting Tales and lore maven and main fiction writer for Starship Valkyrie, a science fiction game and story universe. I write science fiction stories, including sci-fi romance and urban romantasy, and you can often find me in our anthologies and on Substack.
And today, our featured guest is actually Tara Leederman. It's high summer and everyone's on vacation, and we both have releases within a couple weeks of each other. So we thought, why not? We'll just highlight each other because, it's our show. We can do what we want.
That's right.
Tara has a PhD in English and is a former writing teacher. She's one of the editors and all around press gremlin. I love that. Here at Tender and Tempting Tales, and the main fiction writer for Starship Valkyrie. Typically, she writes science fiction romance for the publication, and through which she's branched out into urban romantasy for our most recent zine, Fantastical Foes, which is out. Everybody needs to go check it. She's also the editor of Sapphics of Saturn, which is going to open for submissions in August and will publish in November, and she will appear in our fall anthology, Starlit and Spellbound.
Hi there. Sorry, I gave you a mouthful.
Yeah,
Press
well,
gremlin.
you got a lot going on. So, anyways, if you've been listening to us for any amount of time, we like to start our shows with bookish news or interesting hot takes that we come across in the bookish world and kind of see what each of us and our co-host, and Tara's host and co-host this week, uh, about what is going on. And this week, Susanna Friesen covered a new and old scandal on Book Talk, where the platform again is on fire, declaring that the biggest book influencers don't read the books that they are reviewing. And I've seen this pop up a few times over the last year or so, where people are wondering how are they reading all that they say they're reading. Now, Susanna claims that people shouldn't allow themselves to be influenced and buy books just because a book talker has recommended them, and declared that this is a nothing burger with no proof. Now, Tara, I know you spend a lot of time online, particularly for Tender and Tempting Tales. What do you think about all this?
I want to preface my thoughts with the fact that I really like Susanna Friesen. And I think that I generally agree with her. I think she probably spends about as much time doing a bookish podcast and thinking about romance and being online as we do, especially as I do. So she's seen this stuff come around cyclically, and I completely understand why she's sick of it. Like, I do think that I've seen this drama at least once before, maybe twice, about book talk with people saying that book influencers can't possibly be doing reviews of these books, that they've actually read them, like that. And a lot of people pointed out, like, hey, these people are doing this for their job and they're reading 8, 9, 10 hours a day. And so while you're at your job doing, 8, 9 hours of work there, they're reading, and that's how they're able to read so much and review. And I haven't seen any proof that any particular reviewer, any big book talker has lied about a book, like that, plainly doing a review of something they haven't read with facts wrong and stuff like that. So without proof, it does seem like a nothing burger to me. I was a little perplexed by Susanna's retorts in some cases, and some other people responding to things when they said, like, it doesn't matter to them if the book talkers haven't read the books. That was the premise I found a little strange. It does matter to me that they've read the books. Like, that premise is weird. Like, if there was proof that someone was a big book talker or even a small one and they lied about a book and they hadn't read it, I would care about that. I think that lie would be a big deal. It reminds me of Michaela Noguera over in Makeup World. She's a makeup reviewer, a really big time one, and there was a thing called Lashgate where she was reviewing a mascara, and in one of her clips you can see her holding a different mascara, a Maybelline mascara, and it's plainly like the pink wand, and it's really obviously that. And people just absolutely read her the filth about this. Like, they just tore her apart. And as someone who's not really in makeup world, my first instinct was, who cares? But of course people care, right? Like, if you're in that world, and you go and you get mascaras because a reviewer has done a review of it, and that's part of how you come to understand what's out there and how well it works. And then you get proof that someone lied. Of course you care. So I think the premise is strange to tell people like don't buy books because book talkers have recommended them. People are watching it to see what's out there and to see if someone who has similar tastes in that to them likes the book, right? So I don't I thought that was a weird response. The rest of it I completely agree with.
Yeah, I have all sorts of weird things, and I'm going to try and get to them all. First, sometimes I feel like, and maybe this is on Book Talk, because YouTube, BookTube, I watch a lot of that. And that's where we watch this video, right?
Yeah, exactly.
On
Long form.
YouTube. I just sometimes feel like people are creating drama to create drama so that there's something to talk about, right?
Yeah.
So I have that hot take. I started working on the internet in the late 90s. And so I came up with all the mommy bloggers. That was me. I was one of
Woof.
them. And at one point, um, I can't remember who it was, but there was a mommy blogger who was recommending, I think it was a stroller or something. I don't know what it was. And they had been given the stroller for free. It hadn't been disclosed. And all of a sudden, there was all this backlash and all this talk about these mommy bloggers recommending all these things that they're being given for free that are to the point where the FTC came out where a mommy blogger, and it was geared toward mommy bloggers, but all bloggers had to disclose. That's why you see on all bottom of my websites, I have it automatically in there. There might be affiliate links. We might have been
Mhm.
paid. That's where that came from.
Mhm.
Because there was this sense for some of the people who followed these mommy bloggers, a sense of betrayal that they hadn't really used or chosen or disclosed that they were paid to promote that that item. So in my mind, it's sort of funny to me that somehow in books, it's okay if you don't read and you recommend it. I kind of agree with that because I have bought books, I have read books based on what a book influencer has said, that the way that they reviewed it or what they said about it, I was like, okay, I'll try that book. That's why they exist, sort of, right? And
Yeah.
so that I do agree with you. It's sort of a weird take that there is a trust situation. I also remember at that same time that it was coming out that I had to put all these disclosures on my website about what was given to me for free or what might be an affiliate link. Jamie Lee Curtis was doing all those Activia commercials.
Oh man, yeah.
There was no disclaimer on those about how much Activia she had been given for free. And it's like, well, there's this assumption that they're paying her and whatever. And I'm like, okay, but if I have to put a disclaimer, everybody should have to put a disclaimer. Why are you picking on mommy bloggers, right? So
I think it's because
anyway,
those are like obviously commercials, and it's if something's obviously commercial, then you don't have to disclose, which is weird because you're still using someone's
except for the
authenticity.
point of using Jamie Lee Curtis or
Yeah.
any star. The point of it is people are going to see, oh, Jamie Lee Curtis eats Activia. I'm going to eat Activia. So and so wears Hanes. Oh, I'm going to go out and buy Hanes for my husband, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean that's the point of using a celebrity,
Yeah.
right?
Jamie Lee
Um,
Curtis uses Activia. If I use Activia, I will be skinny and I will be cast in Funky Friday.
yeah. Yeah. The point is that there is a bit that if you are somebody that is talking about items and influencing people to buy them, that there is a thought that you have used it or read it or, have been, if you've been given it for free. So I do understand what that point is in terms of if they're not reading it and they're recommending it, that is sort of questionable because they have built a trust with their readers. So I had that sort of same thought, and it took me back to all those years ago when the mommy bloggers got picked on because
Yeah.
their readers felt betrayed that they hadn't known what was given for free and all this kind of stuff. But I still kind of go back to why are we making a fuss about it? Especially if there's no proof. I
Yeah.
know that many of these book influencers are not reading in terms of sitting down and paging through a book. They might be reading because it's audio. And so they're listening as they're cleaning the house or mowing the lawn or driving the kids to wherever. I mean, I'm thinking of Jess over at Peace Love Books. She often will follow her. She'll have a whole day and she's listening to a book all through all of it, right?
Yeah.
So I think unless there's proof that they're not reading, Um, okay, how many books are they reading and does that seem feasible? I don't know. Would it be, in my mind, I wondered, golly, I wonder if they have people who read for them. Uh,
Mhm.
and should that be disclosed? Probably, maybe. I
Maybe,
don't know.
yeah.
But I think without proof, it's just sort of like, okay, if that's true, then yeah, I think that's problematic. I do think it's a breach of trust. If people are buying based on what you've said, and Susanna and some of the other people she showed were sort of like, you're an idiot if you buy a book based on an influencer. But then I'm like, well, isn't that the point?
I know. Yeah, I thought that was
Isn't
a
that
little
why we're
strange.
watching influencers? I want to see. Um,
And
so
to be clear, Susanna is a de-influencing like influencer, right? She's a
right.
person who writes about and talks about de-influencing. So of course
Yeah.
she's going to say, "Hey, don't buy this because this person tells you to buy it." That's what she says about everything. So
Yeah.
just to be clear, I think that that is going to be Susanna's perspective. But by the same token, I did think it was a little strange to be like, "Well, who cares if they're lying?" It's like, well, I care if they're lying, if they
Yeah.
are. But you would need to
Yeah.
do a like someone would need to do a deep dive and be like, okay, I watched this video. This person said this about the book. That's not true. This person obviously didn't read the book, or they would know da 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 da. And then do it again about that same reviewer lying about another book and make a case that this
Yeah.
particular reviewer isn't reading the books. Like you would need to do more than just be like, they're reading too much. They can't be reviewing all of them, which I think that the problem is not that. I think the problem is that they probably are reading too much too fast, and that changes your experience of the book from the way other people might be reading, right? Like other
Yeah.
people might read very differently and might read more in depth, and because you're doing a review on something so quickly, the nature of your job has changed the way you read, and so you might review something differently. You might also receive things for free and have a different perspective on them than someone who bought the book. Like a lot of people who read arcs and get them for free have a different perspective on them and might give a different perspective on them than if they had bought the book, right? Because just the act of buying a book changes your relationship to the item. And I don't think that we talk about this enough that like receiving something for free can cause you to have a rosier perspective on it because you risked nothing other than your time when you acquired it. I have seen ARC reviews that look to me like marketing blurbs that don't look like they've read the book. And
Mhm.
I have those receipts. I could make a case that there are people, particular people, who are not reading the ARCs before they
Well, the
read.
other part of that is if they are in a sponsored relationship, there are probably certain specific things they need to say.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
When I've ever taken a sponsored thing, they're very clear about what they want to be hyperlinked, exact verbiage, what exactly they want to be covered. So in a lot of ways, a lot of them would seem similar because they
Right.
probably all have the same contractual requirement in terms of
Mhm.
what needs to be said. And what's interesting to me is that this is the case along all types of influencers, bloggers, YouTubers who come into a sponsored relationship. They all are like that. But it's the bookish world. Like nobody says, I don't think they really use NordVPN, or I don't know
Yeah,
if they
yes,
really use
yeah.
Skillshare, right?
Mhm.
Both of these companies have paid YouTubers to promote them.
Yeah,
And you look at their ads, and for the most part, they're all saying the same. Each of these influencers are saying the similar thing because these
exactly.
companies want them to cover these specific points. But
Mhm.
books, like books, maybe you didn't read it. Um, I just, it's just such a weird thing to get caught up on in some ways. It's book talk, which are already shorter videos. So a lot of times when I have bought a book based on an influencer, the influencer's done a deep dive on it on YouTube, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the difference too. So I get exposed to books maybe I haven't heard of through book talk. Maybe I take note of it, maybe I look it up, and then I hear somebody else mentions it. Or maybe somebody on YouTube has done something. And so at that point, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm going to try it. And I've read a lot of good books. That's the other thing. It's like if you're reading and enjoying it, then why not listen to them and expect a level of trust that they've read it, right?
Yeah. They're selling their authenticity often for good
Yeah.
reason, right?
Yeah.
If their taste is similar to yours, you got a lot of really good recommendations from them,
Mhm.
then of course you're going to get that book because like you now have this trusted source, right? Who like
Yeah.
who has already recommended good stuff to you that you know that you
Yeah.
like. And
Yeah.
that's where I think that it's perfectly understandable if people are upset about it. But I do think that you have to come at it with proof. You can't just be like,
Exactly.
from first principle, there's no way they're reading all of these books. Like, you don't know that. When I did
Yeah.
my reading year, I read 180 books for my reading year. And these were not easy books.
Yeah.
These were not romance fiction that are genre and that are on the wall. These are difficult texts from the 17th and 18th century. And it does change the way you read. And that's the reason why I come at this with a certain amount of like, okay, I can see why their reviews might sound a little funny because they're reading things quickly. I know what that feels like. Things start to
Yeah.
blur together and you start to get angry at weird I have noticed TikTokers and bookstagrammers who are angry at certain tropes or things that they see a lot because they're reading so much. And so their relationship to those things that are
Yeah.
repeating is very different from maybe a normal reader,
Yeah.
people who are
Yeah.
not reading for reviews, people who are not reading for their job, it's like, oh, I'm so tired of the miscommunication trope. I feel like I've run into it a gajillion times.
Yeah.
You probably
Yeah.
have, but
Yeah.
most people aren't.
And the unfortunate thing for these book influencers is that if they slow down, they can fall behind. Somebody's going to surpass them. So they're sort of
Yeah.
stuck. They
Yeah.
have to do this at the speed of which their competitor is doing it, it feels like. And so there's really a no-win for them.
Yeah. Anger about descriptions, anger about prologues, anger about not having enough dialogue, anger about having too long paragraphs, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that that's something that normal readers care about, but if you
Yeah.
have to read for your job, of course it starts to piss you off. I
Yeah.
get pissed off about weird things online because I'm doing it for my job, right? Most people wouldn't notice or care, but I'm noticing it
Yeah.
and it drives me crazy.
Yeah. There's a booktuber I like to watch, Read with Cindy. And what's really interesting about her is she reads a variety of stuff. And that might be the answer. Whenever she's doing, here's what I read this month, there's usually at least one nonfiction in there, maybe a graphic novel, a
Hmm.
romance, a horror, a thriller. Like she has all
I
these different things. And so that in some ways that might solve the problem, right? Because if it's the same type over and over. I mean, I was at a romance event of which there might have been 120 authors. And when I walked the room, there was a glazing over of my eyeballs because it just felt like I'm seeing the same types of covers, seeing the
Hmm.
same. So sticking within a genre, well, niching is very good. On the other hand, again, that might be contributing to the problem these poor readers are having.
Yeah.
And who has time to read something else? When I was an agent, uh, I couldn't read. I had no time to read anything else. It really bothered me.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if, they might have some of that too. Like, gosh, it would be nice to read a thriller, but my readers are expecting me to read the brand new Emily Henry or the brand new Anna Wong or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I think they get themselves onto a treadmill. It's perfectly understandable. Like
yeah,
a lot of these things, but being an online person creating content is a treadmill.
yeah,
It starts to run you instead of you running
yeah,
it.
absolutely. I know it. I wonder how other people feel. If you have anybody listening, if you have thoughts, love to hear it.
Yeah, please do. Leave us a comment. Lonely
All
out here.
right. Let's talk about Tara for a minute.
Mhm.
Now, Tara has lots of different writing. She's writing Vox Protocol. She's serializing it over on Substack. It's a sci-fi romance novel. And I have a couple questions around this.
Absolutely.
Tara and I met through putting together the anthology. She had submitted something, and that's how we connected. And it's very clear that Tara's been involved in Starship Valkyrie and a lot of sci-fi stuff. And so my question is, were you always wanting to have romance in sci-fi? Because it's growing now, but it's newer, hasn't been there. Or did you just see this as an opportunity to add something? Like, how did you decide to combine the sci-fi and the romance together?
What was happening at the time is I remember I made a comment about something and my friend Sarah was like, "Oh my God, that's the most Terra thing you could possibly do." And I was like, I was really adding a lot of romance to a particular story. At the time in the Odyssey storyline, my character Telly and my friend Ryan's character Rendagon were getting together and it had sort of dominated the Odyssey storyline, the sort of romance within it. And I was like, man, that's actually like sort of the through line of Odyssey is actually this romance story that's been going over years and it's really a slow burn romance. It's very kabuki drama, right? Like it takes them a long time to get together and they're from different species and different cultures, so it's sort of difficult for them to even communicate that they care about each other. And like what the thing that they're always doing is trying to say like this is what this means to me when I say this or do this. What's the equivalent in your species? And I always really was fascinated by that when we were doing the Odyssey storyline. And this sort of theme keeps appearing again and again in Starship Valkyrie of these different romances. And I was like, this is a really great way of getting at the stories of Starship Valkyrie, is the through lines of these romances. And Zach and Kana, their parents were arguing, and the parents, Star and Nyx, were played by me and Rob at a game that was like this. It was like this sort of trial game for Crimson Tide, and the players had been threatened to be blown up. They had been like talking to someone who had had her brain altered. There's all this horrible stuff going on. They're talking about war crimes. But the very act of these two admirals screaming at each other across the room about their children's wedding was the thing that was like, whoa, 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 admirals, no, mother and father are fighting again. So funny that like this was the thing that was like the thing that they all gravitated towards. It was sort of the weird emotional core of the game was these romance stories. I'm like, okay, this is what's different about Starship Valkyrie. There is a romantic element to this storyline. I should do more with that. And when Marissa was telling me that you were doing a an anthology, I had been following all of your material for Write with Heart because we were left out on our own from NaNoWriMo when we left in November. I'd seen all of your material because I was like trying to make worksheets for our team to work with. And I was sort of altering some of your material and just trying to get a sense of, because I'm not a plotter and you have a bunch of plotting stuff. So I was like, okay, there's some plotting stuff here. I can work with more. Um, but in seeing all that, I was getting a good sense of like how you make a romance. I was like, okay, I can try this. I can actually try to do like a sci-fi romance. I hadn't read a huge amount of sci-fi romance, like modern stuff. I had read some older stuff that I really, really enjoyed, Lois McMaster Bejeweled particularly. And so I was like, all right, let's try it. Let's try to get at the story of Crimson Tide, not through all this highfalutin drama and all of this space battle, but through this romance, the romance between these two young people. And that has been a really interesting way of getting at the stories is following the romances inside of them. And I've actually really enjoyed that. And that's like Vox Protocol has been a nice way of getting at the storyline of what happened to the Amnesia line in Odyssey as well, as like going at it from the perspective of a romance instead of trying to do these really big, like kind of space opera, grandiose storylines with lots of different characters, but focusing on, I don't know, kind of the heart of it, which is a romance.
Yeah, yeah, that's great because I think sci-fi romance is expanding, now that we have
Yes.
uh fantasy romance, romantasy, all that kind of stuff. And I have seen more people who are adding the sci-fi to their what do you write? Oh, I write, sci-fi paranormal or sci-fi this or, with the
Yeah.
romance. So I'm seeing it added more and more. So you're right there at the leading edge of it. So you are serializing Vox Protocol on Substack for people to go read. Maybe you can talk about why you decided to do that and how's that going?
It's going really well. The Starship Valkyrie community seems to be enjoying it, which I wasn't entirely expecting. I read a lot of stuff for them that's not romance as well. But I thought I would do Lance and Andrew for our anthologies this year, and I have been doing that. So I did Lance and Andrew in Fireworks and Flirtation, that's Corlana Lights, and then I did it again for Belvarian Nights, which is going to be in Starlit and Spellbound. And then I've got another story for them for the Vows and Valentines anthology, and that'll be them. So I'll have three stories and then I'll have Vox Protocol on Substack. So I kind of wanted to cross promote. I'm always thinking in
Mhm.
terms of like how can I help promote Starship Valkyrie and Tender and Tempting Tales at the same time. And so I thought having Vox Protocol going on Substack while our anthologies were coming out would be a good way of kind of having synergy. And also it's a really good accountability tool. Like I'm always doing a million things at a time, but knowing that I have to get that chapter up would make sure that I generated it, and like I always feel like I'm responsible to people who are reading me
Mhm.
on Substack, responsible to people who are reading me out there. And so knowing that I have a posting schedule is making sure that the book is getting written. And it stops me from making it this gigantic thing, right? Like I
Mhm.
have a sci-fi brain and sci-fi brains are like, oh, I could also add this and there could be a space battle and another species of aliens could show up and there could be another gigantic crisis. And so it stops me from doing that. I'm just following a romance arc. I used your beat sheet for romance and I plotted the whole damn thing out and I'm going chapter by chapter
Yeah.
like a sane person. And that's just an important thing for me to do, to actually write a novel like a sane person and do a beat sheet.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you writing ahead or do you?
Yes, I'm well ahead.
Okay. Yeah, that's
I
good.
just posted chapter 8 and I'm already up to chapter 14.
Okay. So
I have
that's
to be ahead or I would lose my mind. So like, we're way ahead.
well, along with that, Starship Valkyrie is having a collection coming out that you have written and put together. Comes out August 3rd called Contact Unknown. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about what readers would find in that.
I like how dramatically you said that. Contact unknown.
I
And it is very
know.
quick, yes. Uh, I have a lot of people at playing Starship Valkyrie at Strategicon ask me if I have a collection of stuff that's just Starship Valkyrie, and this is that. I really wanted to have a collection for them that is a good way for them to get into Starship Valkyrie, that has a nice variety of stories, that tells a little bit of the story of the Prozorian Wars, that has an introduction for people, that sort of tells the story of a bunch of different characters who are mentioned throughout the storyline. They give a little bit of an introduction to what remains. Some stories here that are connected to it or are from it. That has the characters from it. We've got Sora Kuramoto here. We've got some Jace Novak here. We've got Savin Calgary. We've got a little bit of the Medusa storyline. We've got some Soren Kuramoto. We've got stuff from throughout the Starship Valkyrie storyline and things that are really important to all of it. And so that gives it a kind of an introduction, so people can kind of like get their feet wet with Valkyrie instead of just, I don't know, going to the wiki and like getting confused and running away again, or trying to deal with the timeline, which is not super usable, which I have to remake. Christian had made us a timeline for Starship Valkyrie Basic back when it first published in 2016, and the timeline is very difficult even for me to use, and I know the lore really well. I was looking at it for our Mars game that we were doing, and I was just like, oh my God, so much here. I mean, Christian is like me. He's a details person in those ways. And so he was like, all right, when do I think this blew up? And like, how did this start over here? So there's a lot of, I don't know, there's kind of a lot of peripheral, extraneous information in the timeline. I wanted to give someone something that was user friendly and fun, and that had all the different tones and types of stories that you can find in Starship Valkyrie. So we've got a murder mystery, we've got some sci-fi romance, we've got queer stories, we've got a story from the perspective of a robot, we've got a story from the perspective of some kids who are doing VR, we've got stuff set in the Skilo Trade Federation, we've got stuff set in the Prozorian Wars, we've got space battle, we've got space opera, we've got wacky hijinks, we have everything.
That's
It's a smorgasbord.
Contact Unknown coming out August 3rd. And of course, we will have links to Tara's Substack and book and all this kind of stuff in our show notes. So you want to check them out. Now, you are going to some events to bring this book with you. You got LFG Con in August, Strategicon in September. You think you're going to sell out, right? You're going to.
I have a very large inventory box with our anthologies and with my anthology. Yes. Yeah, I'm very excited. LFG Con and Strategicon are both gaming conventions. Strategicon is the home of Starship Valkyrie. We're there 3 times a year. We're always running. LFG Con is new. It's new to Southern California and it's new to me. I haven't been there yet. It's their second con ever. I'm very excited about it. They were gracious enough to invite me to come do an author signing. So we're running Starship Valkyrie Basic, we're running Starship Valkyrie Fleet Battle, and I'll also have a couple of author signings, and that'll be the weekend of August 14th to 16th. That's gonna be fun. I'm really excited to meet people, and
Yeah.
I'll have copies of everything with me. And then
Yeah.
Strategicon, I'm doing an author signing and back, and then we'll run Starship Valkyrie Basic, and I'll be around. I run the LARP department there. Spoiler. And I'm also a member of the board there. And the person who runs the vendor hall said, like, why don't you just come in and do you don't have to be in the flea market. Like, you can come and actually do an author signing in the vendor hall. And I was like, yay! So I'll be back
Yeah.
there signing copies of Contact Unknown throughout the weekend as well.
Okay. Okay. Well, too bad Sapphics of Saturn won't be out by then. But Tara is leading our next zine, which is Sapphics of Saturn, that will actually be coming out in November. We're opening for submissions here in August. And maybe you can tell people what they can expect. And of course, we might have some writers listening, what you might be looking for.
Hello, writers. I know you've been hearing a lot about how sci-fi romance is getting bigger, and it is, and you
It
should definitely
is.
write for it. So is sapphic romance. This came out of a joke, as many things that I do begin. I began with a joke. We were in the call. I had been trying to get one of our other editors to run a zine. It had not occurred to me to be one of the editors for a zine, but she was kind of not thinking that she had enough time to dedicate to it. And I made a joke in the Write with Heart call, like, oh, maybe I'll just run Sapphics of Saturn. And it was a joke. It was just I was alliterating, right? But like, three people on the call were like, woo. And I was like, oh, I might have something there. Maybe I should do that. Uh, I definitely want queer stories, things with a sapphic bent. You can go look at the homework. It does not have to be a cis lesbian relationship. Like I just sort of like want people like with some kind of sapphic female experience. So if you like have a trans character, or if you have an alien with a different relationship to gender or different kinds of genders, and but they seem like they might be somewhere in the kind of female spectrum, like by all means. If you have any questions, you can always add a comment to the Sapphics of Saturn homework or send me a message on Instagram. I am infinitely approachable on those things. I would be happy to talk to you about your story. I'm not looking for romances here. I will be looking for them in another zine. So that's like sort of the one thing I'm not looking for is like strictly stories. Other than that, I want it to be sci-fi romance, and that doesn't mean just set on a space station. Like I want things that are sort of dealing with the consequences of futuristic and alien technologies or interactions with alien species, or social science fiction. So changes to our society, dystopian matters are also acceptable. So, think in that space. Like there's a really, really like excellent way of getting at queer stories by thinking about future technologies. Like how would future technologies alter lesbian relationships and then lesbian families, for instance? Those are things to be thinking about. How can future technologies affect what it means to be trans, what it means to transition? Those are all things to think about as you're writing your stories.
So if you have a story, we take 3 to 5 stories. You have through August to get it written, 7,000 words or less, but at least 4,000,
At
5,000.
least 5,000. It's a
Yeah.
sci-fi romance. I
Yeah.
can't imagine you doing it in 3,000. Maybe I have no, maybe I don't have enough imagination, but
Yeah.
let's try to do at least 5,000 words.
Yeah, both the romantasy and the sci-fi zines, that's a challenge because of all the world building that you need to go in and then the relationship building. So that's your challenge. That's your mission should you choose to take it. Write a sapphic sci-fi romance. And we will have links on how to submit going up on August 1st over at the Tender and Tempting Tales Substack or website. So you can submit. And again, if you have questions, Tara will be the editor for that. So you'll want to reach out to her and check that out. So now, normally we ask our guests if they have any questions of us, or maybe there's something else you want to go back and talk about. So, Tara, do you have a question of yourself or of me or something you want to circle back on?
I have a question for you. I've noticed that you've been very interested in sci-fi romance, and like I've noticed in you sort of edging around the genre, and was wondering what you had read in the genre other than my stuff, and like what interests you about it.
I haven't, well, first of all, I like to pay attention to what's going on,
Of course.
and because of you, I've heard about it. So, once you know about something, you see it everywhere. It's like,
Yes.
I think I'm gonna buy a car. I think I'm gonna buy X car. All of a sudden, X cars everywhere, right?
Mhm.
It's that sort of thing. I've never read a lot of science fiction. I mean, I've watched it. I like the movies and stuff. I remember my mom taking me to see Star Wars in 1977. I
Not
was
not
one
sci-fi.
years old. No, I wasn't.
You were 1 year
I
old.
wasn't. I was older than that. And, I mean, I've always been, even as a little kid like that, I mean, I was always shipping Leia and Han, right? Like always throughout that series. So even in the Star Wars, I was, you know, I want the couple, I want the romance.
Yes, yeah.
Um, I meant to look on my shelf because I do believe I have a sci-fi romance Why Choose
There you
sitting
go.
on my shelf, and I meant to bring it up to remember what it is. So yeah, it's something I don't know very well, but of course I'm the type of person that's like I want to read that and figure out what it is. So the only sci-fi romance I've really spent any time with would be what you have written for the anthology. But I do have one on my shelf. Editing Jenna jumping in here real quick because after we finished recording, I did remember a sci-fi book that I read that isn't really a romance, but there is a romantic element to it. And that is Just One Damn Thing After Another by Jodi Taylor, which follows Dr. Madeline Maxwell as she joins the St. Mary's Institute for Historical Research, where they basically use time machines to go back and witness past events to record them. But of course, in doing that, there's all sorts of mayhem and danger that goes with them. The tone is kind of high stakes action with dark humor, and they travel to all sorts of cool times, including 11th century London, World War One, Cretaceous period. That was fascinating because I'm pretty sure I read this a while ago. Pretty sure that was a mistake. And the book ends with them at the Library of Alexandria. This is part of a series called The Chronicles of St. Mary's. I don't know how many books in all there are, except for I know that I have book 9 on my shelf. I've read book 1. I have not read anything in between, but I do remember very much enjoying it. And I do remember that Max does develop a relationship with one of her teammates. So there it is. I have actually read a sci-fi fiction besides Star Wars. When I was younger, I started reading the Star Wars books. Um, and this is funny because I recently saw on on YouTube where somebody was wanting authors to use easier words.
Mm.
And I think the word that they were unhappy with was scry or something like that. They had to look it up. Um, and how many words have I come across writing and either thought that's a great word, I'm going to remember that in my own writing. But even when I was younger, it was a Star Wars book where I came across the word Excel, which I hadn't. I mean, I don't know. I was 10 or something at the time. I guess I didn't excel at anything because I'd never heard it, but I learned a word, right? I
Yeah.
learned a word when I read Pride and Prejudice, I learned words. Or I saw the use of words that aren't used anymore, but I loved how they were. Vexed was one of my, I
I
love
love
that
that.
word.
Yeah.
And we don't really use that very much. So that's I that's what I remember from reading Star Wars was learning words.
Yeah, yeah. It's not particularly possible to write either historical or science fiction romance without using weird words. Like
Yeah.
weird words, strange words, long words, scientific words. I was just writing about nematodes in Vox Protocol. Like, if you don't know what a nematode is, it's time to get out the old Google machine, kids. Like, I don't,
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
coming here for short words, science fiction romance is not the thing for you, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's very normal for different subgenres to use weird or long words, right? Like you can't read historical romance without running into weird old school words. And
Yeah.
if you're not, then it's probably like not done the way that most historical romance readers want to read, right? Like it's
Yeah.
probably in very contemporary verbiage because like scry is not a long word. Scry is an
No.
unusual word, right? So what you're
Yeah.
really saying is don't you use words I'm not familiar with. And
Yeah.
when you say that, you're saying use
Easy, I think.
contemporary words.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
easy was what they said.
Yeah. I've
Use
seen people
easier
say
words.
use shorter words, don't use long words. I see
Yeah.
things like that a lot. And it's like, well, unfamiliar words are going to come up in these subgenres. Like if you don't like my sister Michelle does not like weird stuff like that. She likes contemporary romance. She knows to sort of stay in that zone because she doesn't like running into that kind of friction. Think that that's perfectly acceptable. But
Yeah.
don't come into a subgenre outside of contemporary romance and expect it. You're not going to have a
Yeah.
good time, right?
Yeah, but how many times are you reading a book where you're going to come across words you don't know? I mean, I can think of a handful of times, maybe, where I'm stopping and like, what does that word mean? I'm happy to learn a new word. If they're reading on their Kindle, all they have to do is highlight it and Kindle will tell them what it means. Like,
Yeah.
like my day, I had to go find a dictionary when I
Yeah.
was growing up, like, or
Yeah,
ask my dad.
you can ask Kindle to tell you what a nematode is right there. You're gonna be
Yeah.
okay.
So I mean, this could be a hot take we do on a different show, but it just sort of shocked me. It concerned me a little bit about, are people going to really stop reading or ask authors to change how they write because they don't want to learn a single new word in a book, and they might come across a single new word every fifth or tenth book they read, you know? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
how often does that happen? I don't know. It was weird.
Well, I don't like reading speculative fiction that uses a lot of contemporary writing personally. Like when I'm go to speculative fiction, I'm here to encounter words that I don't know normally and
Yeah.
to figure them out. When I read Parrish, and I read Parrish every day, basically, because he publicizes to Substack, there are words there that I don't know all the time. Right. He uses
Yeah.
Esperanto. He makes up words. He like
Yeah.
he's constantly using neologisms. He malaprops things because one of his characters has a kind of almost a Cockney accent. So I remember one time Dardana Fennec said she called someone a naff sharpie. I loved this. I don't know what a naff sharpie is, but I don't need to know what a naff sharpie is because
Yeah.
as long as in context that
Yeah.
she is calling this someone something bad. It
Yeah.
sounds like she's calling him a dumbass. It's perfect.
Yeah.
I don't know what
Yeah.
a naff sharpie is, and I don't need to know. I don't need to look it up. It's fine. I figured it out
Yeah.
from context, and that happens a lot.
Yeah.
That's speculative fiction brain is like, oh, okay, I'll figure out what this word means in context eventually. Heck, I was
Yeah.
reading Ice Planet Barbarians last night. The first Vexil chapter uses like three words that don't make any damn sense, but you can figure it out eventually.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's just part of speculative fiction that you're gonna run into words that you don't know.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and why people it just was such a weird thing. I hope that is not a norm that people are running across words they don't know and feeling like authors are writing above them or something. I hope
Yeah.
that was just one person who was just being lazy or something.
I
Yeah.
think that it's become normalized to complain about friction on Book Talk and Bookstagram. They
Yeah.
complain about friction in books and threads as well. I've seen a lot of authors push back on this, that like encountering friction in books is not a bad thing. And
Yeah.
in some subgenres, it's just part of reading. You know, you
Yeah.
cannot read Elizabeth Wheatley's books about Viking romance and not encounter friction. It's not
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
You are learning things. Learning is friction. You're
Yeah.
not coming to it and encountering things that you already know entirely, unless you're coming to it and know everything about Vikings already. In which case, awesome,
Yeah.
but you're not
Yeah.
most of the audience.
Yeah.
She's here to teach you things. I'm here to teach you things.
Yeah.
Parrish is here to teach you things. That's speculative fiction. And that's what the wonderful thing about it is. But I do encourage readers, instead of resenting friction, to switch their mindset over to, oh, I'm going to learn things right now, and that'll be fun. But
Yeah.
there's friction to that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
speaking of like all of this, actually, like I feel like we're on the verge of hot takes right now. So
Yeah.
it's my
Yeah.
favorite time. It's hot take time,
Okay.
where we hit on our favorite or our least favorite bookish hot takes circulating on the internet. And Jenna, I know your attention has actually hit on short words and easy words. But what else has drawn your attention in this zone lately?
Well, over the last week or so, I have been annoyed at the fussing just to fuss in the
Yeah.
book,
Yes.
which kind of goes back to fussing about whether or not people are reading all the books. I mean, drama for drama's sake. I mean, I like gossip, I like good drama, but sometimes when I'm going through my YouTube feed and I'm looking at what they're fussing about, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, why? Why is this a thing?
Mhm.
And, we've already sort of talked about people need content and people prefer negative stuff over positive stuff, I guess, on the internet. But over the last week or so, as we're getting ready to do the next podcast and what can we talk about, I just found myself like, I don't even want to, like, why are we fussing about this? It just seems like fussing for fuss sake. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I've also seen a weird trend on Instagram lately, that I've seen a lot of people posting, "Hey, I'm tired of seeing Canva graphics. I'm tired of seeing multiple pictures. Can we go back to the old days of Instagram?" A lot of pining for the old days of Instagram, a lot of pining for an earlier, more maybe innocent era of Bookstagram, where people were just posting pictures of the books that they were reading and maybe slightly aesthetic pictures. And I was wondering what you thought about that. I was
Well,
seeing that. I was like, well, I make Canva graphics a lot because I'm an author, right? Like I have to make Canva graphics to, talk about my books. And I don't really like sharing a lot of pictures of my house because I've got toddler toys everywhere. And I don't like posting a lot of selfies of me or my cat or my kid because I feel like those things get attention, but I don't feel like they necessarily sell books. I'm here to talk about my books and my author career and things that I'm excited about and other authors and stuff like that. But like showing you a picture of my cat doesn't really accomplish that. Canva graphics do. So I was
yeah,
I was a
unless
little
they're
sad
sitting
about
on
that.
your book, right? Unless they're
Right. My
sitting
cat on
on
my
your
book.
book.
I'll do that. I'll get a picture
Yeah.
of Florence on a stack of my books. Here she is right now. Look
Yeah.
at that. Look at
She's
how attention
cute.
grabbing she is.
Yeah. I My deal with social media, and again, old, been around a while. I remember MySpace.
Oh, yeah.
I remember when Facebook came. Remember when they all came. Remember when Instagram came. But the problem is the new one came, and then the old ones had to do what all the new ones do.
Yeah,
And
for real.
so we had Instagram that had single photo, video, carousels, stories. For a
Hmm.
while, they had the TV or whatever.
Hmm.
That's five things. I don't know what each is for.
Yeah.
When do I do story? When do I do picture? When do I do and carousel? I don't understand carousel because that's work. I gotta through I gotta
Yeah.
slide through all the images. I'd rather just watch a video, right?
Yeah.
So that part makes me crazy. Going back to a single photo makes things a lot easier. Of course, if the photo has to be me, one of the reasons Canva's nice is you can create things where you don't have to be in it. I don't have to film myself, don't have to
Yeah.
take pictures of myself. So then I don't have to comb my hair or put something nice on. You know,
Yeah.
and that's my deal. So TikTok now, first was what, a 10-second video, then 30, then a minute. Now it's 10 minutes, but now they have stories,
Hmm.
quote unquote. Like, so which is what do I send to a story versus what do I do? It's overwhelming to me. And as I'm speaking this out loud, I know that I'm sounding like an old lady, right?
No, you don't sound old to me. I think that this bemusement is really normal. I see this
Yeah.
bemusement with younger people too.
Oh,
The
really? Because
constant, like, what is going on? Like, why does this look like this other platform now? I know they've added this, and where did they put this button? And the change is so constant that even younger people are like, oh my
yeah.
God.
Yeah, and figuring out what the purpose, if you're Instagram and you have four different ways to post, how do I know what I'm supposed to, like a story is sort of like a behind the scenes or
Mhm.
your daily life and it's raw footage and blah, 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 blah. Okay, but I don't do that, versus a reel.
Yeah.
So for me, that's my issue. Now, if people are wanting to go back to something simpler, good. Okay, I can do that. I remember that, you know.
Yeah.
But
I
I
also,
also know I just heard a book marketer talk about how reels are still outperforming other stuff on
yeah,
Instagram.
it's true.
So,
Yes, views especially.
yeah.
People are coming to Instagram to watch more than they're coming to look at videos. I mean, or more than that, sorry, not videos, more than they're coming to look at pictures. So I understand the pining for a more innocent time. I just don't, I think that Instagram has moved from that quite a lot. A lot of people are using it to advertise, whether they're
Well,
using it
yeah.
for
And if you
grassroots
follow
advertising.
Gary Vee, who is sort of the guru of online marketing, right?
Yeah.
I remember last year, the end of last year, when he's talking about 2026 coming out, he's like, social media isn't social media anymore. It is your store. You should be selling direct from social media. Oh my God, I can't set that up. I mean,
Yeah.
I could, but I don't want to, you
The
know?
TikTok shop thing, yes, yeah,
Yeah,
it's really
yeah.
intense. It's you gotta be hustling constantly. And I gotta say, I don't think you sound like an old woman. I'm gonna say this, especially for the authors out there, but also readers who might be perplexed about what authors are doing. I am a stereotype. I am a social media manager for two different groups. For I do some social media management type stuff for Starship Valkyrie, and of course I do that for Tender Infinity Tales, and I work with the marketing team for Strategicon. I'm a millennial. I spend all of my time on Instagram, and I have been on social media since I was 16 years old. And I am still perplexed by all of this constant change, the way that they change the algorithm, the
Oh,
way they move
good.
things around, what the difference between a story and a reel is, what the hell I'm supposed to be doing on TikTok, what readers expect, why people are constantly grousing at each other, like why people are advertising the way that they're advertising, why negativity bias continues to be a thing, why people complain about negativity bias but continue to engage with it, why people are constantly rage baiting, why people engage with rage bait when they know that it's a thing, why people engage with trolls when they know that they're a thing, why there are still bots. There are still so many bots on Instagram.
Yeah,
They waste your ad budget, they waste your marketing spend, they make you crazy, they click on things and don't do anything. It's still a problem on Instagram. It's going to destroy the platform. If you're confused and you're an author, or you're confused as a reader trying to find information on books and wishing that things look the way that they did, so do I. I completely understand. We don't make the rules. We just work here.
we're just trying to fit within the platforms. Yeah. It is
Why,
confusing.
why do we market to tropes? Because everybody else markets to tropes. Why do we have cartoon covers? Because everybody else has cartoon covers. Why
Yeah.
do we write romantasy? Because everybody else is writing romantasy. We're just trying to get you to read our books.
Yeah. Yeah. And if there's another way, and next year there might be another way,
Yeah.
but it is difficult to keep up, and it's constantly changing. I'm running ads to a new book now. They're definitely not performing as well as, I mean, my numbers on Facebook look good. I'm
Mhm.
happy with the numbers. But the conversion is, I'm sort of, and so I'm like, gosh, is there something wrong with my covers or something wrong with the blurb? Trying to figure out, or is it just that there's so much out there, there's so much noise out there, and you know, in the book world in particular, in the romance world, I mean, yay for if you're a romance reader, there's so much out there. But if you're
Mhm.
an author trying to be seen, it's very difficult. Yeah.
This is what goes back to why authentic reviews matter. Is I think that readers are trying to cut through the noise too,
Yeah.
right? They use
Yeah.
those reviews, those influencers to know what's out there and to cut through the noise
Hmm.
because there is so much to cut
Yeah.
through. I don't blame
Yeah.
people at all for listening to those reviews, being influenced by them, and needing to trust them. And if
Yeah.
that falls apart, then I really feel bad for readers like dealing with a very, very noisy atmosphere. Because of course, writers are out here talking about our books, but you can't, of course, you can't 100% trust what we say about our books. Of course, we think they're good. We wrote them. You need
Yeah.
someone else to arbit that for you, and that's what reviewers are there for. And if they're receiving a lot of like free arcs from people who have a lot of money or are working with the big six, then that can start to feel suspect. And I understand why people are feeling paranoid and where this whole drama came from.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of reviewers need to read the most popular books because they're competing with other people. I
Yeah.
mean, readers who love Emily Henry want to know what the new Emily Henry book is. So you have to read the Emily Henry book and talk about it so that the readers come look. I
Yeah.
have noticed, because I did get on TikTok for my new pen name, and there are many bookish readers there say they're ARC readers and stuff that in their bio talk about wanting to support independent authors.
Yes.
So I'm really excited about that, that some of them are saying this, I want to highlight these people because it'll be hard for them to get traction if they're not doing the big books, right? So
Yeah. And it's hard to start out, right? When you're starting out as a book reviewer, and that's what you want to do. You want to be a bookstagrammer, you want to be a book talker. You have to
yeah,
start with you can't just go to Simon and Schuster and be like, "Give me an arc."
yeah,
I have no
yeah.
platform. It doesn't work
Yeah,
that way,
yeah.
right?
They'd have to sign up for NetGalley to get those, but even then, some of those that you still have to apply to get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
lottery sometimes.
yeah,
Or you have to have a following. They have to think that you're worth it.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, gosh, I see people complaining about arc reviewers like copying art like reviews from other people and applying for arcs. That seems really complex. I don't want to get into that. It seems horrible.
It's a dog eat dog world out there.
It's hard to be an arc reviewer too. All right, Jenna, you want to take us into some press news?
All right. Well, as we've already mentioned, Tara will be at LFG Con in August with copies of Tender and Tempting Tales anthologies and zines and her own book, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Lots of them.
Fantastical Foes is out. This is a really cute zine. You all need to go read it. And especially if you're not sure about romantasy, it's a good one to check out to see if you might like it. If you do like romantasy, you absolutely should check it out. Plus, along with the stories, there's fun games and stuff like that. Sapphics of Saturn. We have a call for submissions, 7,000 words or less, but over five. Other forward, 4,000? No, I can't
Or
remember.
five, or five,
Anyway,
5 to 7.
uh, go to our Substack. Tara's homework is there for what she's looking for. And please submit. Vows and Valentines. That'll be our Valentine anthology. We're going to have a call for that coming in October. So start writing now if you're an author for Vows and Valentines. And I think the name gives it away. It'll be a Valentine romance. You can visit our Substack or our website to get a sense of what we're looking for, what we mean when we say romance, what we mean when we say three chili peppers or higher, and all our other rules and stuff. 2027 zines and anthology calls are posted on Substack because we have lots of others coming next year. And also, I think we might have mentioned this last week, but want to shout out again Laura Ray, who we had on the show from Laura Ray Says. We were on her YouTube. She gave us a shout out. And she has a new one up this week. I haven't watched yet, but I'm going to go watch it because I think it talks about the emails that authors are getting, the scammy emails that authors
Yeah.
get. See, readers, you don't know. Sometimes, sometimes it is so hard. We get these scammy emails. I get them all the time about, I love the ones where they want to, I have a nonfiction book that they want to turn into a movie. That's my favorite one. That's my favorite one. And sometimes you get phone calls. I get phone calls, and when the phone calls come, I always ask them how much advance they're going to give me.
Nice.
I like to mess with them a little bit. But anyways, it's the worst group of people to try and steal money from because most authors don't make very much money at all.
Seriously.
But
Also, we're pretty good
anyways,
readers, so we can like read the fact that you have not read our books. Do you have
yeah.
a trophy folder of these, Jenna? Because I have a trophy folder.
Oh, I should save that. I delete them because
Ah, you gotta save them.
but I get a good giggle sometimes out of them. Recently I've gotten two or three investment type firms who want to buy a newsletter that I put, it wasn't on Substack, it was on one of the other ones. It's been dormant for maybe 2 years.
Oh
They want to
wow,
talk to me about buying it. Yeah, scam. I can,
wild.
anyway.
Buy your newsletter that's been
Yeah.
dormant for
That's
two
been
years.
dormant for 2 years. Yeah. And might have 8 posts on it, right? Like it was an idea that I let go. Anyway, go watch Laura Ray Says. She's a lot of fun. And then, of course, Author August, hosted by Mariah Inkenman, is running now, or well, running in August. And you can check that out on Instagram.
All right, we are Tender and Tempting Tales. Of course, you can find my mission briefing for Sapphics of Saturn on our Substack. Please go check us out, Tender and Tempting Tales on Substack. We've got great articles coming out every week from Jenna Hart. I write some stuff for us as well. We've got an author takeover going on right now for Annie R. McEwen. We'd like to showcase our authors there. We'd love to showcase books that we love to read, Instagrammers that we enjoy, bookstagrammers and book talkers and booktubers and all of that. In fact, Jenna did an article last week talking about book influencers that you should follow. And we also find our podcast there. So we highly recommend that you go and follow us on Substack. It's sort of the grand central of everything that we do. You can also follow us on Instagram. That's Tender Tempting Tales on Instagram. No, and you can find updates going up every day about all of our authors, about all of our publications, and calls for submission happening there on Instagram. And of course, follow the podcast on Buzzsprout. We've got episodes going up every single week. Jenna?
Yeah, just a quick reminder, the podcast is posted on YouTube. It's posted at major podcast platforms as well as on our Substack. And wherever you're listening to us, thank you so much for joining us and listening to us chat about bookish things. We're part of the problem. We're part of the problem.
I appreciate
We're fussing the fuss.
I appreciate you having me on and talking about sci-fi romance. It doesn't get enough. It doesn't
Uh,
get enough air, nor does sapphic romance. So it's wonderful to at least talk about that.
Well,
I think we have a good
yes.
balance.
And I will say real quick that there is a video that has come across my YouTube feed that I haven't watched yet, but talks about this very thing about readers are enjoying the romance, but there hasn't been enough sapphic. And so I want to watch that and kind of get a sense of what they're saying about maybe why that is or what we can do about it. We are going to do something about it through Sapphics of Saturn.
That's right.
Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, peace, love, and happily ever after.